Hey everybody, it's Matt with the DPI podcast. What's going on? Thursday night, and we're going to do another DPI live tonight. There's a lot going on with Disney, so just wanted to bring everybody up to date on what's going on, what's coming out of Central Florida, and kind of how things across the nation are happening as well, and could be affecting travel moving forward. So one thing before we get going, a lot of you are new to the channel, so like and subscribe, get notified when we have new content coming out. We have a ton of stuff coming out right now. We're getting pretty consistent on doing at least a weekly live, getting a video out, and really adding to our Disney content. So definitely like this and subscribe to the page, and let us know what you think. So this is the DPI podcast. So, really big news out of the Orange County Task Force meetings the last couple of days. They've really, Tuesday, they laid out kind of the theme park guidelines and their recommendations on capacity and that kind of stuff. And then yesterday, I just happened to be listening when they started talking about actually opening theme parks and what that might look like. And Chuck Whithall, who's kind of been leading these meetings, had this phrase that he came out and said, and it was basically they shall each develop their own specific and unique set of guidelines following CDC recommendations and using best practices that will protect the life, health, and safety of their employees and guests. They will be permitted to open at their own discretion with their internally determined level of safe capacities throughout the various spaces. This was in a conversation with the mayor of Orlando, Buddy Dyer. And then the conversation after this really kind of revolved around, does this really make sense, and how does this work in conjunction with public businesses and that kind of stuff? So what I want to do is I want to bring on Peter with Princesses and the Mouse, and we're going to talk a little bit about it uh, moving forward.
Turn your Disney dream into a magical Disney vacation with Princesses and the Mouse Disney Travel.
Hey, Peter, what's going on, bud?
Oh, just living the dream. I'm currently in a different location tonight, so got the headset and everything. It's a good time.
So what's going on with your thought process on at least travel to Florida right now? We'll get to California here in a few minutes, but let's talk about Florida first and what's come out the last couple of days on really this task force, and they're going to vote on guidelines tomorrow. But this task force coming out and saying, hey, the theme parks can kind of do what they want as long as they're following in line with what we're recommending for public businesses.
Yeah, kind of a lot of developments. We basically sat there from when they closed mid-March all the way until, April 27th with basically nothing as the whole nation sort of watched and waited. And now in 48 hours, we've gone from nothing to here's your parameters to you get to call the shots as long as you play by the rules. And I think this bodes really well for what you and I were talking about on Tuesday for Florida, in that Disney should have the opportunity now over the next week to develop their protocols, develop their timelines. And I really think, if they call back just their furloughed employees and do some quick cross training over the course of a week, week and a half, um, you know, you and I already talked about the online check-ins and everything like that. So if you're a resort hotel, if you work in a lobby of a hotel, you could easily go work, park entrance, things like that. So I think it'd be really interesting. I think Disney could call back their furloughed staff and be right around the third of their employee base, quarter to third of their employee base back right away to where they could then figure out, like you and I talked about, getting Florida residents, potentially pass holders back in there by mid May, maybe late May, just to see what it looks like under all of these parameters. Now, Shanghai is also opening, so that will be a big kind of help to the Disney company to see how all that goes live over the course of the next week as well. So, lots of things. I, I think for Disney World, the idea that it's going to be getting going by June, um, it it seems plausible that it's going to be going in some form or fashion by late May or early June. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean, if you're you and I, if you got a June 10th trip booked and you live out of state, I wouldn't necessarily pack the ears yet, but at least there's kind of a hope on the horizon, I guess.
Yeah, and I really think that what we're looking at on the world side is probably by the end of the month we're gonna see, and by end of the month I mean by end of May, we're going to
Today.
we're going to see um, the parks at some sort of open. Really, it's going to be dependent on how fast they can get through this phase one in Florida. So I've heard a couple of different things on this open. One, they start mentioning the fourth when they're going to start opening. Hospitals up to elective surgeries, some dentist office up, some restaurants up to outdoor seating and 25% capacity, and some of the things like that. And then from there going to a a more broad open up of retail and salons and that kind of thing. Now, one thing that I know that Orange County is really struggling with in the onset is how do they recommend the distribution of PPE, so that personal protective equipment, by these smaller businesses, because it's really hard to come by, and a lot of places you can't get hand sanitizers. These thermometers that they're wanting you to use are $70, $80, and they're really thinking that that's going to log jam the open of a lot of states because this stuff just isn't readily available, and it's not the cheapest in the world for some of these small businesses to obtain. So it's going to be interesting to kind of see how that happens. Now in the chat, we're getting a couple of questions, and it's about the Oogie Boogie Bash, and I guess just in general, Halloween parties. And how I want to respond to Halloween parties is Disney is really going to be conservative on another large gathering because they can limit tickets to that, and that's one of the events that they could actually probably control the best. But I think when you're looking at the fall, as states start to open back up, you're going to get this spike again. Everybody's talking about the second wave of the virus. And I think you're going to see that. And it depends on how fast that comes and goes and how all the social distancing measures and everything that the parks put in place at the beginning work, before they can really make a determination on if they can even do a party, whether it's um, the Halloween parties or even the Christmas parties come November.
Right, and that um, kind of along those same lines, if you're wondering about, like the after hours events and these special things, I think it all just depends on what would the crowd level look like if you were to do that, and then is it worth Disney's time to do that, right? So when you hold a party or anything like that, those are hours that you're paying employees to fill the park. And then if you're sitting there going, well, we can hold this party, but we're only going to sell a quarter the number of tickets, at what point do you say, well, this probably isn't worth our time? Um, but back to your point about the PPE and all of that stuff, you're absolutely right. That's a really hard thing, especially when these business owners haven't made any money or very little money over the course of the last 6 weeks. Restaurants, even though there's a lot of restaurants in our area that, are just absolutely hopping in the carry out, but I guarantee it's nothing what they would normally get. Now, hopefully their staffing is a little bit lower as well, but those people are out of jobs. There's just so many moving pieces in this to firing things back up. And the same thing, there's a whole bunch of people up in arms about, well, we're doing this too soon, we're doing this too soon. Okay, if you feel that way, then stay in your house. You can do that. Well, no, my job wants me to come back. Okay, so go back to your job and do so in the smartest way to minimize your risk. Well, I don't want to go back to my job, but you just complained about needing money. Like, I just like
Well,
make up. You got to make up your mind here.
and I think a lot of those server and minimum wage type jobs that have kind of gone away during this, they're going to be harder to fill coming back, because a lot of the people that are getting that unemployment and getting that bump that some of the states have done and the government's done in some areas of that 600 extra dollars, they're making more on unemployment right now than they would if they were actually working. And especially if you're only going to have a restaurant at 25% capacity,
Hmm.
they're probably not going to be making the same type of money that they were prior to this. So it's going to be interesting to see how some of these smaller restaurants and restaurant chains start coming back, and how they kind of introduce everything on how our new normal is going to be. Um,
Yeah,
kind.
especially.
Go ahead.
Oh, oh, yeah, especially um, when you think about, especially these restaurants working carry out right now. Chances are, if you go back to 25% capacity, in your restaurant or in the outdoor seating, those people are probably already working at the restaurant because they're the ones who are currently running the curbside orders and taking the orders over the phone and everything like that. So, if you're currently laid off, it doesn't necessarily mean the job's going to come back really, really quickly. This whole thing's going to be a slow recovery, not a, like Governor Holcomb said earlier today. I was listening to his press conference. It's not a rip the band-aid off your back to normal. It's a slow and steady progression to get things recovering and coming back. And like you just mentioned, there is going to be a new normal, and the same applies for Disney World. Disney World just released masks today. You can buy them in the Disney store. They are set to be available. I think it's said by June 14th, June 15th, something like that.
Yeah, but if you don't already have them, you're not getting them right now because all the pre-orders are already sold out.
Right, right. But Matt and I were joking earlier today. My point here is that they're going to be at every hotel lobby and front gate. You're going to get your magic band and your mask. It's going to be another part of the sort of the resort experience is getting you set up for, if you're planning on going to Disney in June and July and you're still holding out those hopes, just be prepared that you're going to have to walk around Florida heat with a mask on, and and the only time it's going to be able to come off is when you're truly in open air away from people, and then it's going to have to go back on as you go into rides, and you know then it raises the question, well, how do you do that at dining? Exactly, how do you do that at dining? There's a whole bunch of logistics that need to be figured out. So
I
don't expect Disney tomorrow to release their plan. It might take them a week or two.
I still think that the masks are going to be a very strong suggestion, but they're not going to be anything that they can mandate. They just can't.
Right.
But I think it's going to be a really, really strong suggestion. And I moved over. I actually had the mask queued up on the screen share. So they actually did a really good job with them. When we were talking about them on Tuesday, we were talking about, Mickey faces and that kind of stuff and what Mickey face you would have. One of the sets is actually faces. There's a Pixar set, a Princess set, a Mickey and Minnie set, a Star Wars set, and then a Marvel set. So those were the 6 sets that were released today. They came in small, medium, and large. Good luck trying to get them. They'll be on eBay as soon as they get shipped out. So it's going to be like your special edition Magic Bands that you can get for $10 prior to your trip.
Yeah, there are some other vendors who are also making or have been making Disney face masks as well for the last few weeks.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of Etsy vendors
Yep.
and that kind of stuff that have been doing it as well. If you've got somebody local that's actually doing it, definitely, definitely look for your local vendors and that kind of stuff. So, the next thing is you never think about how interconnected Disney is until somebody from another major company comes out and says, hey, we really need Disney to come back so we can get our business back up and running. And that's what happened with Southwest Airlines this week. Their CEO was on an interview and basically said, travel in the US isn't going to get back to normal until Disney opens back up. And that's a pretty strong comment from a company and a CEO of a company as large as Southwest. Southwest is one of the few airlines that provides nonstop from Indianapolis to Orlando. So it's, for us, it kind of hits home. But, when you think about all of the vendors, whether it be produce or meat or, their apparel vendors or their toy vendors, there are so many people that are interconnected within Disney that, that economy down there will not get moving until Disney gets moving. And it's going to be the same with, that Anaheim economy on a smaller scale, but still,
Yeah.
Disneyland still puts out a lot of apparel and a lot of stuff. So
Yeah, you're absolutely right with that. I mean, if you just think about, just Disney World alone, how many tens of thousands of people book a flight because they're going to or from Disney that day. You know, you talk Disney properties as a whole runs 100,000 people through, depending on the day, sometimes more, sometimes less. They roll 100,000 people through every day. How many of those people are arriving and leaving? 10,000 plus people are arriving or leaving on that day on average. So, um, and that's just Disney World. They're the largest single site employer in the nation, and they're shut down. Now you want it to come back the right way. You would hate for them to come back and like tarnish their image because they rushed too soon or didn't do things correctly. But um, when you're talking the brain power in that organization, if they can't figure it out, I you know who can? Um, but you did bring up Disneyland, so now I'm just gonna jump over to that. Um, Disneyland, I'm kind of concerned about now after Newsom over the last couple of days. So Governor Newsom out in California kind of laid out his stages, and for all intents and purposes, Disney would fall into stage 3 or stage 4. In stage 3 and stage 4, Newsom talked about outdoor theme park style entertainment options. Stage 3 brings back sports with no fans. Stage 4 is where you finally start putting fans into the venues, concerts coming back online, entertainment, movie theaters isn't even until stage 3. And so then people said, okay, so what does the stages look like? And Newsom made it seem like we're 2 weeks to a month away from stage 1, and then multiple months away from stage 3 and stage 4, because some of his demands were that we have an active cure or vaccine for the virus before California is willing to move to stage 3 and stage 4. So um,
uh,
the
and
whole
that seems
June idea kind of scares me.
and it seems like a little bit of double talk on his part, because as of last Saturday, all the conversation coming out of California was they want to try and get kids back in school by July. So
Right.
when you're talking about putting kids back in school, and some of those high schools out there are 3,500 kids, what's the difference between putting 3,500 kids in a small building and putting local residents that have masks that are practicing social distancing in a relatively large area?
Right.
To me it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So I really think some of the states are going to drag their feet, and I hate to say it, just because it's an election year.
Well, and I also think they're going to drag their feet because they want to watch what it happens with everybody else, right? So, it's the whole like I'm just going to keep my own, but part of that is a valid point. Um, being an election year, what could they do to kind of keep things under their control that they might not be able to control?
Yeah, and I think, with the talk here in Indiana, the best course of action for any governor right now is to tell people stay at home, because it's not going to get much worse if people are staying home. So they're going to all err on the side of conservatism and really not try and push that bar too far forward. Um, I'm interested to see what our governor here in Indiana says. It won't be a shock if they extend it a couple more weeks. The city of Indianapolis has done that, but all kind of thoughts right now are that they start phase one, May 4th, May 11th.
I think we're starting actually Indianapolis or Indiana is kind of starting state phase one tomorrow. So starting tomorrow, our medical services are going back to non-elect or elective things, and dental offices are reopening for routine maintenance. I have an appointment with an eye doctor tomorrow that I couldn't get 2 weeks ago. So part of part of the stuff is coming back online right now tomorrow. Simon Malls is opening up this weekend, and there's been nothing. I feel like by now Holcomb would have said something to stop that from occurring if he had plans and visions of doing that. I expect him to kind of lay out some groundwork, kind of talk about like restaurants, for example. Restaurants don't need to start putting people inside of them. They don't. They
Correct.
can keep right. They can keep going. Most of them have worked out the logistics of a carry out system. It seems like people are still willing to go out and grab that food. I went into Olive Garden a couple of weeks ago, and in the 10 minutes I was there to pick up my food, another 25 cars went, in and out. So, um, like bars, unfortunately, how do you tell a bar to only operate at 50% capacity, right? Who determines what 50% capacity is, and how do you socially distance inside of a bar? So there's just, like I said, there's just so many moving targets in this. And to your point, the first governor that runs forward with no restrictions that sees a spike is just going to get absolutely dragged across the coals.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
absolutely.
Well, and you see, you know, Texas, North Carolina, Georgia, Idaho, Wyoming. There's a lot of states that are opening up, end of this week, early next week. So it's going to be interesting to kind of see kind of how that goes. And I think if it goes well, it's going to bode well for other states moving forward and maybe moving at a faster pace. Right now I still see Disney beginning of June, mid June, for Florida, California. With
Who knows right now? Yeah.
yeah, with what they're doing right now, who knows with California? But I also think that with World, you're looking at locals, annual pass holders, and national guests. I don't think you'll see international guests in either of the parks until 2021.
Long time. Yep. Long time for that. I think you and I are both on the same page there. And then from there, it's just a question of how things get going over the course of the next couple of months. The listeners who asked about the parties and things like that, a big draw of the parties is all the unique character greets and parades and shows. And if Disney comes back online with modified or missing character meets and getting rid of parades and nighttime shows to get rid of the draw to one centralized area where 10,000 people are all going to pack. Part of socially distancing would be getting rid of those things like the stage shows on the castle and the fireworks at night. So no, like you said, if they come back in June and July, Disney will have to do a lot of researching and analyzing and observing before then they decide if August, September, they're willing to bring back the not so scary party or
Yeah,
not.
yeah. And I think that's going to be a really late announcement. I mean, I don't think you see it anytime before the end of July that they're
Sure.
even going to try and do one of the parties.
Right.
So,
And that's the other thing that just needs to happen. They just need to kind of go develop their protocols, and then it's going to be, they're going to have to roll it out, and then they're going to have to wait a week or two, and then they're going to have to, you know,
see and
you
adjust, see
can't
and
rip the band-aid
adjust.
off. Yeah.
Yeah. Just want to drop in here and just, hey, everybody that's currently watching, thanks for watching us today. Hit the subscribe button, like the podcast. Check out some of our other content that we've got on the YouTube channel right now. We do have quite a bit right now, so definitely check that out. We are the Disney Planning Insights podcast. This is DPI Live. Just want to show you the actual YouTube page right now. We got a lot going on here. We've been going live a couple times a week between here and Facebook. We're going to start moving everything over here to the YouTube side. I just think it's a more conducive platform for what we're doing right now. So definitely check out some of the stuff. And if you do have any questions, reach out to us. We're more than happy to answer questions, talk to you guys. I've spent most of this week dropping in on other live podcasts and that kind of stuff and being kind of interactive in the chat. So I want to thank some of those podcasts for really, inviting me in and having some fun with us. Cosmic Read Live on Monday night. I had a back and forth with the Park Hopper today. So, just a lot of fun. I think that's one thing that a lot of the content creators on YouTube, especially on the Disney side, when we get together at things like, the Indie Disney Meet and that kind of stuff, the one theme that we really have is we like checking out everybody else's stuff and really being interactive with everybody else's stuff as well. So definitely invite you to be interactive with us here and, let us know your thoughts. So, really the last thing I have is this NBA thing keeps bubbling up at World. And, it kind of goes away. And then all of a sudden, an insider with the NBA or somebody like that tweets about it again. Or, Adam Silver or, somebody says something. Iger's spotted with an NBA guy. And this keeps bubbling up. It makes a ton of sense. It really does. I think it's one of the options that the NBA is looking at. I don't know that it's the number one option. It sounds like the NBA is going to start letting teams get back to training if their areas allow them. This week, I'm throwing my golf ball. Yeah, my golf ball just went flying off my shelf. But, it's
went
something
further than some of your drives.
It's something that's very interesting because if the NBA is going to use Walt Disney World as their location to resume the season, they are going to take a chunk of the rooms there. And you would imagine that they've got a couple of months left. So they're going to take a couple of months worth of rooms and
I think you're going to lose all of Coronado Springs or Caribbean Beach. That one, those are where the rumors are swirling, and those ones would make the most sense to kind of house a team in a building. So I think Coronado Springs makes a lot more sense than Caribbean Beach, but from what I've heard, it's Caribbean Beach that would basically get absorbed by the NBA. But Coronado Springs with the Destino Tower would allow you to house execs and officials and things like that. And
you could do that with Caribbean and Riviera as well, since it's all right there.
Oh, that's true. You could use Riviera for it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, do you got anything else tonight?
Nope. Just I'm just sitting on pins and needles waiting for a Disney press release, because if you look at both of the websites, their last COVID update was like April 16th, and you're just sitting here going, "Give me something."
Well, the way that they have handled this, they've tried to keep it away from the market. So they're going to announce something on a Friday night or a Saturday morning, so that the market has 2 days to forget about it before
Think
Monday
about
morning.
it first.
Yeah.
Right.
So, that's how this is going to happen is tomorrow night or Saturday morning, we're going to get something from Disney that says, we're going to start hiring back workers for a May 16th start date. And then we expect us to take 2.5 weeks to get the park prepped. And we're looking at bringing back, Florida local guests and annual pass holders in the Southeast region on June 1st.
Sure. maybe.
And I think that's how it's going to happen. We're going to get probably a 2 week notice that cast members are coming back because a cast member is going to leak something to somebody.
Right. They're going to get an email that's supposed to be, for your eyes only.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
all of a sudden, it's the same reason why we know about the cast members and all their furlough options, and the fact that they received notice from Disney saying that they do not expect the furlough to last more than 6 months. So they couldn't exercise that, whatever that option was in their term agreement.
Mm-hmm.
So,
So,
so
so that I mean, so we'll get something like that will give us at least a starting point from there. Now we're timing it out. Like I said, a couple of weeks to get the parks open, if they're not already laying out this stuff already, because there are still people in the parks. Not
that's what
everybody
I
got furloughed.
wonder. Like, I think didn't Disney do? I don't know if it was a live show today, but Disney aired their Happily Ever After fireworks show. So I don't know if it was like filmed last night or whatever, but you could watch it on the internet earlier today. So I don't know if it was a previously recorded show or what, but just everything seems like there's a lot going on in the parks in terms of like prepping that nobody knows about right now.
Yeah, yeah. And then once we have a date, we'll definitely be on that night to talk about it. So stick with
For
us,
sure.
and if you do have any questions, let us know. So thanks for staying with us. We went a little bit longer than I thought we were thinking about going tonight, but I think we covered a lot tonight. So Peter, thanks for coming on again. Enjoy
Thanks
the
for
rest.
inviting me, even though I'm wearing my Quidditch shirt that I got from Diagon Alley and Universal
Yeah,
Studios. But
yeah,
that's another point that we didn't make. For those of you interested about other attractions, I think SeaWorld, Universal, and Disney are all going to walk hand in hand in this thing.
yeah, yeah. I think they will too, and um, I think you'll watch Disney. Universal's going to be the vocal one. Disney's going to be the one that does it right, and SeaWorld's going to try not to f it up. So I think that's kind of how the parks go down there.
I like
So
how they explained. I mean, if you're SeaWorld, you just got to be feeling so bad because the task force puts this thing out and says, here's what small entertainment needs to do. Oh, and large entertainment like Universal and Disney, like they flat out like put SeaWorld in the small entertainment option.
yeah.
Like, we don't care about your Discovery Cove or your Aquatica.
All right, man. Well, thanks for joining us tonight. Everybody, have a good night. Wash your hands. Stay safe. Stay at home. Don't spread the disease so we can get back to Disney. I'll talk to you guys later.